Looking back at the BMW R25 Gearbox teardown, it was clear that somebody had already been in there before me. Thankfully, I decided to go all in and give this gearbox the full rebuild it really deserved, by replacing a lot of parts along the way. Some of the components were still available, but others, like the second speed gear, which had been brazed at some point, needed to be swapped out for a good used one. In this video, I'm putting together what seems like a simple BMW R25 gearbox, but don't be fooled. It's made up of over 120 individual parts. Starting with the input shaft, which takes power directly from the clutch, I'll be installing a brand new ball bearing and the drive gear. Behind that, there's a thrust piece and a spring that help absorb the shocks coming from the engine. That little dampening system makes a big difference. It takes stress off the gear and it helps everything last longer. Next up is a C-clip that holds the bottom assembly in place, followed by the kickstarter gear. With all those parts assembled, we'll move on to the cluster shaft. This transfers power from the input shaft to the output shaft and offers the gear ratios. I'm adding a brand new double angular contact bearing here. It's designed to handle the downward force that is applied onto the helical gear inside the gearbox. For now, we'll set that aside and move on to the output shaft. This is where all the gears spin on the bushings. The R25 originally used aluminum bushings here, but BMW later switched them to bronze. The center bushing, which supports the second and third speed gears, was still in good condition, so I reused it and reinstalled the gears. For the second gear, I got lucky and found an excellent used one from a later model gearbox that is a perfect fit. Before assembly, I made sure to oil all rotating surfaces to give everything a good pre-lube. Between first and second, and again between third and fourth, there's a sliding claw that locks into the gear you select while shifting. At either end of the output shaft, I'm installing brand new bronze bushings I machined myself. They've got the proper internal and external clearances to make sure everything runs smoothly. I made these in-house from C954 bronze on a manual lathe and added 2 small oil holes with grooves to help distribute oil. These bushings should last at least as long as the originals, if not longer. The output shaft is supported by ball bearings at the top and bottom. Under the bottom bearing, there's a snap ring that locks the bearing securely into place. At this point, I can check how the sliding claws work and make sure all the gears spin freely on the shaft. With the 3 main shafts sorted, it's time to focus on the smaller, more fiddly parts of the shift mechanism. On the left side of the gearbox, the shift assembly goes in with new return springs. These bring the shift lever back to center and help with the shifting stroke. Then there's the cam plate, which moves the shift forks and tracks which gear is selected. What's interesting here is that the cam plate has 6 detent positions even though it's a 4-speed gearbox. Normally you'd have neutral, first, second, third, and fourth. That's 5 positions. But this one adds an extra neutral between third and fourth. This type of cam plate was only used on R25 gearboxes from 1953 onwards. So clearly somebody swapped it in during a previous repair. Once all those little parts are in place, I test the shift lever and everything clicks through nicely. Now it's time to install the shafts, and to do that properly, I start by preheating the gearbox housing with a heat gun. The input shaft goes in first, followed by the cluster and output shafts, both at the same time, with the shift forks already in position. If the housing is heated evenly, everything should just drop into place without any resistance. Once the shafts are in, I make sure the shift forks are seated properly, then tighten down their bolts on top of the gearbox case. After the whole assembly cools down, I spin each shaft by hand to make sure everything moves freely and there's no binding. I had a few questions about that hand lever on the right side of the gearbox. Now I'll tell you what that's for. It's known as the neutral finder, and it's connected to a shaft that runs through the gearbox to the shift mechanism on the opposite side. Basically, it lets you engage the shift mechanism by hand, which can really help when you're struggling to find neutral. Technically speaking, you can shift up and down with it, but let's be honest, it's too short and it's mounted too low on the bike to be practical for normal riding. Still a cool feature though, so hopefully that clears that up. Since this gearbox had been worked on before, a couple of the original studs were damaged. I replaced them with new M6 studs and also reinstalled the dowel pins to keep everything aligned. Next, I heated the gearbox cover to about 70 degrees Celsius so I could fit the input shaft's cover bearing. Then came the shim, followed by the kickstarter idler gear, which is held in place with a snap ring. Inside the cover, there's also a felt seal for the output shaft. This old school felt gets soaked in gear oil for a few minutes. It acts both as a dust barrier and a seal up against the output flange. It's then pressed into the cover and secured with a metal cap. Before closing everything up, I measure the shaft heights and the gearbox cover depth to find out which shims are needed to set the proper end plate. If you want a full walkthrough of that process, check out the 1-hour detailed gearbox rebuild video I've linked above. Once I've picked the right shims, I install a new paper gasket and heat the cover to bring both halves together. New washers and nuts go on next, torqued down to spec to give everything a tight and secure fit. Then I install the shaft seals, one for the shift lever and another for the neutral finder mechanism off to the right. Adding the chrome bits gives this whole gearbox a nice and clean finish, in its patina look obviously. Finally, the output shaft flange goes onto the taper and the nut is snugged down with a ratchet. After that, I bring out the big torque wrench and tighten the flange nut to the final spec, holding it steady with a special locking tool. With the speedometer drive gear in place, I give the flange a spin and it rotates smoothly, just as it should. To finish things off, I install the clutch bracket and a new pin onto the cover side. And with that, this gearbox is ready to go back into the bike. I really hope you enjoyed this gearbox build, and if you did, stick around. Next up is the engine assembly video.